ranger was fueled by his fury, barely pausing on their journey for food or rest. Arlo thought it almost matched his own. Was a small village, was now a foul Darkwing base, with all they needed to launch attacks all across the north. And the ranger fought tooth and paw, bow and blade, to drive back the bat filth. Razek had sent one of his strongest generals, Necromancer Buraz. His defeat would rob the bats of a great weapon. Warren was safe in Rabbit Paws once more. Gray Ears swore that if the Warden of the Wastes ever called for help, the rabbits would answer. At Winter's Edge, the rabbits celebrated that their homes were safe once more. They longed to feel the crunch of snow under paw. Despite all Arlo had done, the Darkwing threat was still growing. The North was running out of time. He told Leaf to call the War Council. Tomorrow they would make their plan. Arlo could not sleep a whisker. He wished more than anything that his father were here to tell him what to do. The nervous chatter silenced at Arlo's entrance. He did not sweeten the truth. The Darkwing numbers grew. They would return, and Winter's Edge could not stop them alone. He called Robin forward. Arlo was raised on tales of how the North could not rely on Southern kings. But he was desperate. The Ranger was sure King Reggie would prove different. Ordering the council to prepare for war, they set course for the Crimson Keep. The Crimson Keep's dock was the greatest Arlo had seen. Robin explained it was built by master craftsmoles. He laughed, telling Arlo how ratfolk believed their king paid them by fighting huge warrior moles in an underground arena. The King card. A rare card indeed. Although rare, its qualities are not always positive. The Smith card. Highly sought after for its ability to change the qualities of other cards. The king's steward, Doug, stopped them before the throne room. He started at the news of war, and then rushed away, muttering about how the armor would need to be polished. Dennis, the king's brother, was also curious to see this northerner. Dennis missed war. He could plainly see by Arlo's expression that was the warden's task. He hoped they could fight together someday. Arlo was nervous to meet this king. He hoped Reggie lived up to all he'd heard from Robin. He did not have to wait long. King Reggie was glad to see his old friend Robin was safe and bid him to tell his tale. Robin told of the death of his son by the ferocious Darkwings and begged the king prepare his forces to go north. Reggie was sad at the loss of Little John, but said that was not reason enough for the South to join a northern war. The king wished them well and turned to go. Arlo stepped forward, asking what the king would do when there was no Winter's Edge to shield the South. If they sent no help now, the Darkwings would not stop at their borders. Reggie listened to Arlo tell his tale. It brought back terrible memories of a father lost and a land left in ruin. A tale not unlike this young warden's. He held out his paw in friendship. King and warden, united, could stop any foe. The southern ratfolk would not simply leave the warmth of their homes for frozen lands they had never seen. A trial by combat would prove his worth. Arlo agreed. He would do whatever it took. News had spread swiftly. As Reggie led them to the tournament grounds, the streets were already full. Villagers craned their necks to see their warrior king and this strange northern challenger. Doug was an unlikely opponent for the first round. His small stature made it hard for him to wield a sword. But when it came to fighting for his king, Doug stood 10 paws tall. Was no match for Arlo's superior skill. Reggie could already see this would be a tournament that they would squeak of through the ages. Dennis, veteran of the Green Ward's War and captain of the Royal Guard, would be a true challenge for Arlo. The crowd's cheers for the king's brother echoed off the arena walls. was a veteran too, used to fighting monsters and darkwings with ice under paw. Dennis did not compare. Now the crowd cheered for him. Arlo's final opponent was the king himself. Reggie had seen off the frog invaders almost single-pawed and was beloved by his subjects. This fight would be a tale for their times. stature and skill, there was not a whisker between them. They shook paws in truce. No rat could doubt Arlo's worth now. Reggie said to meet him by the docks. Together, they would wipe out the Dark Wings once and for all. Together, they would attack Mount Cauldron. Seeing the king's forces training for battle, Arlo felt the stirrings of something he'd long thought dead in his heart. Hope. At the dock, Arlo's little heart leapt again at the strange contraption. If it was a boat or a house, he could not tell, nor why it had a giant sleeping fuzzlebug atop it. From inside emerged King Reggie. He was not alone. King Reggie introduced Bertle. Arlo felt something comforting in the turtle's presence. Bertle was proud to take the army to Mount Cauldron in his bug ship. They would make camp at Highland View, where Arlo could find them when his forces were ready. In a flap of its wings and a cloud of gas, the fuzzlebug took King Reggie and his army north. Whatever tasks Arlo had to finish, now was the time. Once the war began, there would be no turning back.